The frozen night and the unexpected tug. Officer Daniel Mercer sat slouched in his squad car, exhaustion pressing into his muscles like a weight too heavy to bear. The dashboard clock flickered 11:47 p.m., casting a pale green glow across his face. The freezing November air seeped through the slight crack in his window, mixing with the lingering scent of stale coffee from his thermos. Another shift was crawling to an end, another night of routine patrols, paperwork, and a city that never seemed to change. His gloved fingers tapped absently against the steering wheel as he stared through the windshield. The streets were eerily quiet, the glow of flickering street lamps casting long, restless shadows over the cracked pavement. It was the kind of night where even trouble seemed too cold to venture outside. He sighed and reached for his thermos, grimacing as he swallowed the last of the lukewarm coffee. 13 more minutes. That was all that stood between him and the solitude of his apartment. Home wasn't much, just a dimly lit space filled with leftover takeout boxes and silence, but at least it was familiar. The radio on his dashboard crackled, but no calls came through. No emergencies. No crimes. Just the sound of static, like whispers lost in the wind. His breath fogged up the window as he reached for his pack of cigarettes. A bad habit, one he had been meaning to quit for years, but nights like this made it impossible. He flipped open the pack, plucked out the last cigarette, and flicked his lighter. A small flame illuminated the deep lines on his face, lines carved by years of long shifts, broken promises, and the weight of a badge that had once meant something. The first drag filled his lungs with warmth, a contrast to the cold air pressing against the squad car's windows. He exhaled slowly, watching the thin strands of smoke curl and fade. 15 years on the force had changed him. The idealistic rookie who had once believed he could make a difference had been worn down by reality. Now, he was just another cop trying to make it through the night. His thoughts drifted, lost in the rhythm of the city's silence. Then, movement. A flicker of a shadow near the corner of the gas station. His instincts sharpened instantly. Years of experience told him to stay alert. His hand hovered near his holster as his eyes narrowed, scanning the dimly lit pavement. Probably just a stray cat, he told himself. This part of town was full of them. But something felt off. A soft sound. Faint. Almost lost in the howling wind. Then, the tug. It was gentle but urgent. A small, trembling hand gripped his pant leg, the fingers barely reaching past his knee. His body tensed. His training kicked in as he snapped his head downward, ready for anything. And then he saw them. 2 little girls. Twins. Barefoot. Shivering. Their tiny frames swallowed in oversized shirts that barely covered their knees. Their dark curls clung to their damp faces, and their wide, frightened eyes locked onto his with an urgency that sent a chill down his spine. One of them, her lower lip trembling, barely managed to whisper, "Help." Daniel's breath caught. He had seen a lot in his years on the force, violence, neglect, desperation, but this? This was different. "What's wrong?" His voice softened as he crouched down, trying to appear less intimidating. The girl swallowed hard. "Our Nana fell," she murmured. "She won't wake up." His heart clenched. The other twin, slightly smaller, clutched her sister's arm. "Please," she whispered. Daniel didn't hesitate. "Where is she?" The girls grabbed his hands, their fingers were ice cold. And then, without another word, they led him into the darkness. The alley of shadows and a face from the past. Officer Daniel Mercer followed the twin girls into the night, his pulse quickening with each step. Their tiny, bare feet barely made a sound against the cracked pavement, but his heavy boots echoed like a warning in the cold silence. The air had a sharp bite to it, the kind that seeped through even the thickest layers. Daniel pulled off his gloves and reached out to the girls. "You're freezing," he murmured, but they ignored him, too focused on their desperate mission. They led him past the gas station, down a side street where the streetlights flickered weakly, barely casting enough light to cut through the darkness. "Where is she?" Daniel asked again, his breath misting in the cold. The taller twin, at least, by an inch, pointed ahead, her hand shaking. "There," she whispered. Daniel's stomach twisted as he followed their gaze. At the end of the alley, crumpled on the pavement like a discarded coat, lay an elderly woman. His training took over. His boots pounded against the asphalt as he rushed to her side, his fingers immediately checking for a pulse at her neck. The skin was cold, too cold. His chest tightened as he pressed 2 fingers firmly beneath her jaw. Thump. A weak, struggling heartbeat. She was alive. Barely. "Ma'am," he said urgently, tapping her cheek gently. "Can you hear me?" No response. Her breaths were shallow, slow, almost imperceptible. He glanced at the twins, who stood a few feet away, hugging each other for warmth. Their wide, fearful eyes watched his every move. "Her name?" Daniel asked quickly. "Nana," one whispered. "She's our Nana." Daniel studied the woman's face more closely. She was frail, her skin lined with the deep creases of time. Her gray hair was unkempt, and she wore only a thin sweater, completely inadequate for the freezing temperature. And then, it hit him. A memory. From years ago. Daniel's breath caught in his throat as recognition slammed into him like a freight train. "No way," he muttered, his fingers tightening around her wrist. The past came rushing back, unbidden and overwhelming. 30 years ago. A cold, rainy night. He was just a boy, 9 years old, lost, scared, and hungry. His mother had left him at the corner store, promising to come back. She never did. He had wandered for hours, his thin jacket soaked through, his stomach aching from hunger. When he collapsed against the steps of an old bakery, ready to give in to the bitter cold, a warm voice had called out to him. A woman. She had taken one look at him and pulled him inside, wrapping a thick, knitted blanket around his shivering shoulders. "You don't have to be alone, sweetheart," she had whispered, placing a steaming bowl of soup in front of him. For the first time in days, he felt safe. For the first time in his entire life, someone had cared. That woman, this woman, was her. Nana. A lump formed in his throat. This woman had once saved him. And now, she was the one who needed saving. Daniel snapped back into action. "She needs warmth, now," he muttered under his breath, shrugging off his thick police jacket and draping it over her frail body. He pulled out his radio. "Dispatch, this is Officer Mercer. I need immediate medical assistance at 42nd and Maple. Elderly female, unconscious, signs of hypothermia." A burst of static, then a voice. "Copy that, Officer Mercer. Ambulance en route." The twins shuffled closer, their eyes welling with tears. "She's gonna be okay, right?" one of them asked, her voice small, hopeful. Daniel forced a reassuring nod. "I won't let anything happen to her." But deep inside, he wasn't sure. Not yet. He took off his gloves and rubbed Nana's hands between his own, trying to get warmth back into them. "Come on," he murmured. "Stay with me." Minutes passed like hours. The sirens in the distance grew louder. And then, her eyelids fluttered. A sharp breath escaped her lips. Daniel leaned in. "Nana," he whispered, his voice barely above a breath. Her glassy eyes slowly opened, unfocused, lost. She blinked once. Twice. And then, her gaze found his. For a moment, there was nothing but silence between them. Then, recognition. Her lips parted slightly, her breath shaky. "Danny?" His heart nearly stopped. She remembered. Even after all these years, she still remembered him. Daniel swallowed hard, his grip tightening on her frail hands. "It's me, Nana," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm here." Her lips trembled. A weak smile ghosted across her face before her body slumped again, her energy spent. But she was still breathing. Still alive. The sirens blared louder as the ambulance screeched to a stop at the alley entrance. Paramedics rushed forward, their voices sharp, their hands efficient as they assessed Nana's condition. Daniel stood back, the twins clinging to his legs. One of the medics glanced at him. "You the one who found her?" He nodded. "She's lucky," the medic said, checking her vitals. "If she'd been out here much longer, it wouldn't have been good." Daniel swallowed. "Lucky? No. This wasn't luck. This was fate." As the medics carefully lifted Nana onto the stretcher, the taller twin suddenly turned to Daniel, gripping his sleeve. "Are you gonna come with us?" she asked, her voice so quiet he almost didn't hear it. Her sister looked up at him, eyes full of a silent plea. Daniel hesitated. His shift was over. He could go home, pretend tonight never happened. But as he looked at the two little girls, cold, scared, alone, he knew he couldn't walk away. Not this time. He crouched down, meeting their eyes. "Yeah," he murmured. "I'm coming with you." And as the ambulance doors swung open, Daniel knew that tonight, everything had changed. Forever, buried secrets and an unfinished debt. The ambulance rocked gently as it sped through the city streets, red and blue lights flashing against the glass buildings. Daniel sat across from Nana, his police jacket still wrapped tightly around her frail body. Her breath was steadier now, though shallow, her fingers twitching slightly under the blanket the paramedics had placed over her. The twins huddled beside him, their small hands gripping his sleeve like he was the last lifeline they had in the world. Daniel's mind raced. The weight of the moment pressed into his chest. This woman had once saved him. Given him food, warmth, and kindness when he had been nothing but a scared, abandoned boy. And yet, he had never returned to find her. Never thanked her. And now, years later, fate had brought them back together. A paramedic, a young woman with sharp eyes and a focused expression, glanced at him. "She's stable, but she's been out in the cold for too long. Hypothermia, severe malnourishment." She shook her head. "This isn't the first time she's been like this, is it?" Daniel stiffened. "What do you mean?" The paramedic sighed, adjusting in 4-line. "I've seen her before. A few months ago, same condition. Collapsed outside a bakery downtown. She hesitated. She refused treatment back then. Discharged herself." Daniel's jaw clenched. His gut twisted painfully. Nana, his Nana, had been suffering for months, maybe years. Homeless, starving. And he never knew. He felt sick. The twins, small, fragile, clinging to each other, had been out there with her. Living in the cold, barely surviving. How? Why? He swallowed hard, glancing at the girls. "Who takes care of you?" he asked, keeping his voice gentle. They looked at each other. Then, the older twin, by a mere minute, they had proudly told him earlier, spoke first. "Nana does," she whispered. "But you don't live in a house?" Daniel asked carefully. They shook their heads. He frowned. "What about your parents?" Silence. A chill ran down his spine. The girls exchanged a look, their fingers tightening around each other's hands. "They went away," the younger one whispered. Daniel's stomach twisted again. Something was wrong. These weren't just two kids who had fallen on hard times. There was something else here, something deeper. Before he could press further, Nana stirred. A soft, broken breath escaped her lips. Danny. His heart clenched. He leaned forward, gripping her frail hand. I'm here, Nana. Her eyes fluttered open again, weak but sharp with recognition. For a long moment, she just looked at him, as if memorizing his face. Then, her lips quivered into the faintest hint of a smile. I always knew, you'd be something special, she murmured, her voice barely more than a breath. Daniel's throat tightened. His mind flashed back to that night, his night. When he had been the one shivering in the cold. When she had wrapped him in warmth. When she had saved him. And now, he was here. Returning the favor. But before he could say anything, Nana's face twisted with something else, fear. Her fingers, weak as they were, gripped his hand tighter. Danny, she whispered. You need to take them. Daniel's pulse jumped. The girls? He asked, glancing at them. Nana nodded, her breathing uneven. You have to, keep them safe. Daniel's instincts went on high alert. From what? From who? The paramedics hadn't noticed the change in her expression, but Daniel had spent years reading people, and right now, Nana was terrified. He leaned closer. Nana, tell me, he said quietly. Safe from who? Her lips trembled. Then, just as her mouth opened to answer, the ambulance jerked to a sudden stop. The paramedics cursed, grabbing onto the side rails as the tires screeched against the pavement. Daniel's hand shot out to steady the twins, his heart pounding. What the hell, he started, but the driver cut him off. There's a car blocking the entrance, the driver called from the front. Some guy standing in the road. Daniel's spine went rigid. Slowly, he turned toward the front windshield. A shadowy figure stood under the hospital's harsh floodlights, his face obscured by the glare, but his stance, rigid, waiting, sent a chill up Daniel's spine. A deep instinct, one honed by years as a cop, screamed danger. Nana's grip on his hand tightened weakly. Her voice was a whisper, but it cut through him like a blade. Danny, they found us. His blood turned ice cold. The twins shrank against him, as if they knew, as if this wasn't the first time they had seen that figure before. Daniel didn't hesitate. He reached for his gun. Then, the figure moved. A slow, deliberate step forward. Daniel's pulse thundered. Whoever this was. They weren't here to help. Shadows of the past. The ambulance remained at a dead stop, its flashing lights casting eerie red and blue streaks across the wet pavement. The figure ahead didn't move, not at first. He stood still as a statue, his silhouette barely shifting in the cold night air. Daniel's breath slowed, his heartbeat pounding in his ears. Instinct took over. His years on the force told him this wasn't some random pedestrian or concerned bystander. This was intentional. His grip tightened around his holstered weapon. Nana's frail fingers trembled in his grasp, her whispered words still chilling his bones. Danny, they found us. He glanced at the twins. They clung to each other, their wide, terrified eyes locked on the man outside. They knew him. Daniel turned back to the paramedics. Lock the doors. Now. The driver hesitated. Officer, what's going on? I don't know yet, Daniel admitted, but until I do, nobody gets in. The paramedic closest to the rear doors reached for the lock, clicking it into place. The driver revved the engine, inching forward. But the man outside remained motionless, making no attempt to move. Then, he lifted a hand. Slow. Controlled. A single index finger pointing directly at the twins. Daniel's stomach twisted. Whoever this was, he wasn't just here by chance. Hey! Daniel barked, reaching for the ambulance door handle. Get out of the way, or... The man took another step forward, revealing his face. Daniel's blood ran cold. It wasn't the features that stopped him, it was the recognition. He had seen this man before. Years ago. A mugshot. A case file buried deep in the department's archives. Terrence T. Booker. A street enforcer for one of the city's most notorious crime families. He had gone underground after a string of violent assaults, suspected in multiple kidnappings, but no one had been able to prove anything. Daniel had arrested one of Booker's associates almost a decade ago, a human trafficking case. Was that why he was here? His mind worked fast, piecing together the fragments of information. Nana's fear. The twins' silence. The man standing outside, waiting. Something about this wasn't random. Then, Nana's whisper came again, so soft, it was barely audible. They can't have them, Danny, they can't have my babies. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. His gaze snapped back to the twins. A sickening realization dawned. They weren't just abandoned children. They were being hunted. His grip on his weapon tightened. Before he could make a move, Booker did something unexpected. He smirked. A slow, knowing grin. Then, he lifted his jacket slightly, just enough for Daniel to see what was tucked into his waistband. A gun. The message was clear, he wasn't leaving without them. But over Daniel's dead body. In a flash, Daniel unlatched the door, stepping out before the paramedics could protest. The freezing night air hit him like a wave, but his focus was locked on the man before him. Step back, Daniel ordered, his voice cold and sharp. Now. Booker chuckled, his breath fogging in the air. Relax, officer. I'm just here to pick up what belongs to me. Daniel's skin crawled. Belongs to you? He heard the twins whimper behind him. Booker's smirk didn't waver. Yeah. Family business, you know how it is. His gaze flicked toward the ambulance. Come on, girls. Time to go home. The twins clutched each other tightly, burying their faces into Nana's blanket. Daniel's blood boiled. They're not going anywhere with you, he growled. Booker exhaled through his nose, shaking his head. See, now that's where you're wrong. You don't know what you're getting in the middle of, Officer Patterson. His tone darkened. And trust me, you don't want to. Daniel stood his ground. No. What I don't want is to see two terrified children forced into whatever hell you're planning. Booker's smirk faded. The air between them turned thick with tension. Then, Booker sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. All right, fine, he said casually. Guess we do this the hard way. His hand moved for the gun. Daniel reacted instantly. His own weapon was out in a flash, his stance unwavering. Don't. Booker paused, fingers hovering just above the grip. A long silence stretched between them. Then, he chuckled. All right, all right. Booker raised his hands, stepping back. No need to get all tense. But Daniel didn't lower his weapon. Booker's grin widened again. You think this is over? His voice was almost amused. You don't even know what you're protecting. Daniel's jaw clenched. Walk away, he ordered. Now. Booker let out a mock whistle. All right, all right. I'll back off. He took another step back, slipping his hands into his pockets. But before turning away, he muttered something, so quietly, Daniel barely caught it. You can't protect them forever. Then, without another word, he disappeared into the night. The second he was gone, Daniel turned and rushed back into the ambulance. The twins were still huddled together, their small bodies shaking. Nana's breathing had grown shallower, her eyelids fluttering. He knelt beside her, gripping her hand again. Nana, he said urgently. Tell me the truth. Who is he? Her lips parted, but the words came slowly. Danny, she murmured. They weren't supposed to know. Daniel's grip tightened. Know what? She swallowed hard. The twins, she whispered. They're not my grandbabies. His breath caught. What? Nana's voice trembled. I found them, she admitted. I found them running. Hiding. They were supposed to be taken. Stolen. Sold. Her frail fingers clutched his arm. I had to save them, Danny. I couldn't let them be taken. Daniel's entire world tilted. Booker wasn't just here to reclaim family. He had come to take back something his people had already stolen. The girls weren't just victims. They were survivors. And now, Daniel knew. He couldn't let them go. No matter the cost, nowhere to run. The echoes of Booker's words lingered in Daniel's mind like a slow-burning fire. You can't protect them forever. The ambulance rattled as they sped toward the hospital, but Daniel's thoughts were stuck on what Nana had just revealed. The twins weren't her granddaughters. She had rescued them. From what? From whom? His fingers twitched against his holster. He stole a glance at the girls. They were still huddled together, clinging to each other, their wide eyes filled with unspeakable fear. Nana's hand trembled in his grasp. Her breaths were coming in ragged bursts now, and her strength was fading fast. Daniel had seen this before. She didn't have much time left. He had to get answers, now. He leaned in, his voice low but urgent. Nana, listen to me. Who are they running from? Is it Booker? She swallowed hard, blinking rapidly. It's bigger than him, Danny, she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. He's just the dog they send to retrieve lost cargo. Daniel's stomach twisted. Cargo. That word alone sent a wave of nausea through him. Human trafficking. The case files from years ago flashed through his mind. Young women. Children. Taken and never found. Was that what this was? Had Nana stumbled onto something even the police hadn't uncovered? Tell me the truth, Nana, he pressed. Who do these girls belong to? Nana's lips trembled. She tried to speak, but her voice failed her. Instead, she reached for Daniel's hand, her grip surprisingly strong despite her frailty. Her eyes locked onto his. You have to keep them safe. Daniel nodded. I will. But I need to know who I'm protecting them from. Her next words made his blood run cold. The Syndicate. His breath caught. That name was whispered in precinct halls like a ghost story. The Syndicate wasn't just any criminal network. They were untouchable. Ruthless. They didn't just traffic people, they owned people. Police officers, judges, politicians. And if they wanted these girls back, Daniel was in more danger than he had ever been before. The ambulance jerked to a stop, yanking Daniel from his thoughts. They had arrived at the hospital. The rear doors swung open, and paramedics rushed to wheel Nana out. Daniel stepped back to let them work, but as they moved past him, her grip suddenly tightened on his hand. Her strength surprised him. Danny, she gasped. Promise me. His throat tightened. I promise. Nana's gaze softened, as if she had been holding on just to hear those words. Then, she let go. Daniel stood frozen, his heart hammering, as the hospital doors swallowed her whole. A tiny hand tugged at his sleeve. He turned to find one of the twins, Amara, the older one, looking up at him with wide, tear-filled eyes. What do we do now? She whispered. Daniel exhaled slowly. That was the million-dollar question. He knew one thing for sure, they couldn't stay here. Not with Booker out there. Not with the syndicate lurking in the shadows. He crouched down to meet her gaze. We have to keep moving, okay? Amara nodded, glancing nervously at her sister. Then, Daniel made a decision. He wasn't taking them to a shelter. He wasn't calling social services. They wouldn't be safe there. He needed someone he could trust. And there was only one person who fit that description. 30 minutes later, safe house. Daniel's knuckles rapped against the heavy steel door of a small, nondescript building in a rundown part of town. The windows were boarded up, the alley silent except for the distant hum of traffic. The door cracked open an inch, a single dark eye peering out. Then, it swung open all the way, revealing a tall woman with sharp features, a no-nonsense expression, and a Glock strapped to her hip. "Patterson," she said, arms crossed. "This better not be one of your late-night I need a favor visits." Daniel exhaled. "It is." Her sharp brown eyes flickered to the two small figures clinging to his side. Her expression shifted instantly. "Get inside. Now." Inside the safe house. The moment the door locked behind them, she turned on him. "You better explain," she demanded. "Who are they?" Daniel ran a hand through his hair. "They're in trouble, Layla. Big trouble." Her brow furrowed. "How big?" Daniel met her gaze. "The syndicate." Layla's expression didn't change, but Daniel saw the slight tightening of her jaw, the flicker of unease in her eyes. She had worked organized crime for years before she left the force. She knew exactly what that meant. She turned her gaze to the twins. "They after them?" Daniel nodded. Layla sighed, rubbing her temples. "Hell, Patterson. You really know how to pick a fight." Daniel glanced out the window, his paranoia creeping in. "Can you keep them safe?" Layla studied the girls for a long moment, then sighed. "Yeah," she said finally. "I can." Relief washed over Daniel. But it was short-lived. Because at that moment, gunfire erupted outside. A car screeched to a halt. Layla swore under her breath, pulling her Glock. Daniel shoved the girls behind the couch. "Stay down." A shadow moved outside the window. Then, the front door exploded inward. No way out. The door exploded inward with a thunderous boom, sending splinters flying through the air. Daniel barely had time to react before a shadowed figure rushed inside, gun raised. "Down!" Layla shouted, already firing. A sharp crack echoed through the small room as her bullet tore into the first attacker's chest. He staggered back, but more footsteps pounded against the pavement outside. Daniel's instincts took over. He grabbed the twins and shoved them behind the worn-out couch. "Stay down. Don't move." Amara and Maya huddled together, their wide, terrified eyes locked on him. Daniel drew his own weapon, barely ducking in time as a spray of bullets ripped through the drywall behind him. They weren't here to scare them. They were here to kill. Trapped like prey. "Who the hell did you piss off, Patterson?" Layla hissed, ducking behind an overturned chair as another round of bullets shattered a lamp beside her. Daniel clenched his jaw. "The syndicate." Layla muttered a string of curses under her breath. "Great. Just great." The sound of crunching glass made Daniel whip his head toward the window, just in time to see a dark figure climbing inside. Too late. The attacker swung a metal baton at Daniel's head. He barely dodged, the weapon grazing his shoulder with enough force to send shockwaves down his arm. Gritting his teeth, he lunged, ramming his elbow into the man's ribs. The attacker stumbled, but before Daniel could press his advantage, another one stormed in behind him. They were outnumbered. And worse, they were surrounded. Layla took down a second attacker with a clean shot to the leg, but a third was already behind her. He slammed into her, knocking the gun from her hand. Daniel saw the glint of a knife. No time to think. He tackled the man, sending them both crashing into a pile of furniture. The blade clattered to the floor. Fists flew. Daniel barely registered the pain as the attacker's knuckles cracked against his ribs. He managed to grab the guy's wrist and twist, eliciting a sharp grunt of pain before slamming him into the wall. One down. But then, a gun cocked behind his head. Checkmate. Drop it. Daniel froze. The voice was deep. Cold. Too familiar. Booker. Daniel slowly turned, breathing hard. The towering enforcer stood in the doorway, a silencer attached to his pistol, his expression blank as he took in the wreckage. Behind him, 6 more men filled the narrow alley. Layla was still struggling against one of the remaining attackers, but when she saw Booker's gun leveled at Daniel, she stilled. The room went silent. Even the twins had stopped whimpering. Booker exhaled. Damn shame, Patterson. He clicked his tongue, shaking his head. You should have stayed out of this. Daniel's grip tightened on his gun. Booker smiled slightly. That was rhetorical. Drop it. Daniel's heart pounded. If he complied, he was dead. If he fought, the twins were dead. Checkmate. A desperate gamble. A soft sob came from behind the couch. Booker's eyes flicked toward it. And in that moment, Daniel made his move. With a sharp twist, he ducked, yanking Booker's arm sideways just as he fired. The bullet whizzed past Daniel's ear, slamming into the wall. Chaos erupted. Layla took advantage of the distraction, elbowing her captor in the throat and diving for her weapon. Daniel drove his knee into Booker's stomach, knocking the gun loose. A second gunman lunged toward Daniel, but before he could pull the trigger. Bang! Layla shot him clean through the chest. Another syndicate thug bolted for the twins. Daniel's blood went cold. No. Summoning every ounce of strength, he grabbed the fallen baton and hurled it. It struck the man square in the temple. He collapsed instantly. End of the line. Booker groaned, struggling to his knees, but Daniel was already on him. He grabbed the enforcer by the collar and slammed him against the wall. Blood dripped from Booker's nose. His cocky grin was gone. Daniel pressed his gun under Booker's chin. Who sent you? His voice was low. Dangerous. Booker chuckled, then spat blood onto the floor. You already know. Daniel's finger twitched on the trigger. Tell me. Booker smirked. You kill me, and another will take my place. Daniel gritted his teeth. That was the thing about the syndicate. They never stopped coming. Unless you hit them where it hurt. The only way out. Daniel exhaled sharply. Get up. Booker frowned. What? You're going to help me. Booker laughed, a cold, humorless sound. And why the hell would I do that? Daniel's grip on the gun tightened. Because if you don't, I'll make sure the syndicate knows you talked. For the first time, Booker hesitated. Daniel saw it, the flicker of fear. Even a man like Booker had something to lose. Layla stepped forward, eyes locked on Daniel. We can't run forever, she murmured. Daniel nodded. No. But we can bring them down. Booker scoffed. You're dreaming, Patterson. Daniel's jaw clenched. Maybe. But deep down, he knew, it was their only chance. The syndicate thought they were just another loose end to be tied up. But they were wrong. Because Daniel wasn't running anymore. He was fighting back.